tell you a little bit about how things happened. I came here to play some country music showcases at a place called the Ace of Clubs in town here, and I was the token instrumentalist. All the other artists, said, put that guy on first, and so let the real people come up and perform. So I'm really glad that I got to go on first because the audience was sober, and so was I, and I hosed the crap out of them. Right? I came out there for a 20-minute set, and I hosed them out, and the audience went crazy. As Jerry Reed would say, they threw babies in the air. And lucky for me, Chet Atkins was in the audience with the rest of the record company people, and they came backstage and said how much they liked it. Chet said to me, I was underwhelmed. So the next night I played the same thing, like in the same venue, and so word must have got around. It was twice as big a crowd, and it looked like most of them were there to hear me play, and I was so thrilled. And so about a week later, I get a call at my house in Australia, and it's Chet. And he says, well, these Columbia people are pretty excited about you and me working together. Would you like to do that? Whew.
Wow.
I said, is there a mustache in Mexico? I said, does a one-legged duck swim in a circle? Does the Pope wear a funny hat? Does a bear poop in the woods? Come on. So, yeah, and he was so nice about it. He said, we should try and write some things. And then he said, have you got any songs that you'd like to bring to the project? And I said, yes. And I played him my song, Dixie McGuire, over the phone, and he loved it. And so that song made it onto the album first. I was really, really thrilled. But after I put the phone down to him, I am set about writing Mr. Guitar, which was the last song I just played you. And I wrote that in about 10 minutes, and I rang him back, and I said, hey, Chief, I've just written you a song. And my daughter held the phone to the guitar, and I played it for him, and he loved it, and it made it onto the album. So that was the start of everything. Then I started getting tapes. He had lots of songs and ideas, and he was a great ideas person. He would take someone's idea and make it into something else, especially if he heard that it was kind of catchy. Anyway, we kept sending tapes to each other, and then he asked me to come over and to stay at his house. He didn't want me to stay in a hotel while we were working together. He had a little granny flat in the house, and so he said, we want you to stay with us, and you and I can go down to the studio and work there, because the studio was at home. So I came to stay, and it's surreal. If you can imagine, I'm a boy from the bush. I'm a kid from nowhere growing up listening to this giant, this guy whose name is on everyone's lips. And I'm sitting there having coffee and breakfast with him every morning, and he's telling me stories about working with the Carter family and Homer and Jethro, and showing me different guitars that he used on different records, and it was surreal. I often think back and go, did that really happen? It was too amazing. Anyway, we had a bunch of songs going, and I hired a young guy who was good with programming computers. This is a long while ago now. This was 1996. So that kind of technology was only just starting. So there was a young guy here, and I can't remember his name right this minute, but he programmed bass drum and hi-hat parts for me so I could map out songs. And then what I would do is I recorded the bass drum and hi-hat parts, and there's the song. Then I put some rhythm parts, and then I put a bass part on, and then I got Chet to come downstairs and play the melody part, and then I would put like brushes on top of the bass drum and hi-hat part that was there, so it sounded like a real drummer, and it does. And I can still remember him saying, "Oh, you've got to use these brushes." And he gave me this really nice pair of what looked to be really high quality brushes. And I said, "Oh, they're beautiful." And he said they were Larry London's. And so I used Larry's brushes on his tape box. I used a reel-to-reel tape box about that big, and I put a microphone on it and played it like a drum. And that's how I got the sound, you see? The stuff you learn at Cass, amazing, isn't it? Anyway, so we got most of the tracks sorted out. Chet had an operation, and they had taken a bit of his lung out of his back here, and he was kind of getting over that. So I had to kind of do most of the putting together of the project, and then he would come and join in when he felt well enough. And I remember the day we did Waltzing Matilda. It was really, really wonderful because he wanted to do it live, and he wanted us to sit together and play, because we'd worked it up in the kitchen upstairs, and he was liking it. So we set up the mics, and I don't know if you can imagine this. When you're miking up a acoustic guitar, you first of all, you got to choose the right mic, and then you got to find the sweet spot. You got to find the right place, so it's not too boomy and bassy, not too nasally, not too much high end. It's got to be just nice and woody and round, sweet sounding, you know. So I'm going to a lot of trouble like that, and Chet sits down with his Del Vecchio resonator, and he grabs the microphone, and he goes, plonks it there. Okay, let's go. He didn't do any looking for the sweet spot. He just put the mic in front of himself, and that was it. And when I played it back, it sounded amazing. He sounded amazing, and it was just a mic just there, you know. Anyway, so those songs that we did live in the studio came up so beautiful, and he was really, really happy with that. And then before I had to fly back to Australia to go back on tour, because I have to earn a living, Chet woke me up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and he was in his pajamas, and he's standing there holding his Ramirez classical guitar. He said, "I just thought of one more song, and I think I can play it." And he said, "If you can come up with a second part, we can do it as a duet." And I said, okay. So I got out of bed in my pajamas, grabbed my guitar and tuned it to his, and he played me Smoky Mountain Lullaby. And I quickly worked out a second part, like a harmony part, and I learned the song like, you know, just pour, like instant coffee, just put water on and you got a cup on that and you got a cup of coffee. That was instant arrangement, you know. And so I come up with these parts, and Chet was like, "Yep, that sounds fine, that sounds fine, let's go." So there it is, 4 o'clock in the morning by this time, down the passageway into the studio. He's got the mics all set up. We sat down, and he said, okay, and he pressed play with his foot, because he had his controls put onto a board, and they were on the floor. So he could sit there and just press record with his foot and start playing, and then stop it, and then rewind it, because we were using 16-track analog, right? There was no digital recording at his house. And anyway, so we played it one time, and if you listen to that recording, it's a beautiful recording. The quality of it is beautiful. But I remember it so well because I was using 100% of my concentration powers to remember everything I just invented and come up with to go with his part. And he was in 100% concentration because he was struggling so much with his motor skills because of his operations and stuff, he was trying to play as perfectly as he could. And neither of us looked at each other when we were playing. We kept our eyes closed the whole time. So I guess we went into the zone.
Yeah.
And we played the song, finished it, and we just held, and then we opened our eyes and looked at each other. And I saw him start to smile, and I knew, great, we got it. Because if he didn't smile, you know you didn't have it. And he smiled, and that was it. And his smile meant, good, I can go back to bed now. So, one take, boom, there it was.
Wow.
And how about that? We got nominated for a Grammy for that track, and it was a beautiful experience.